Good morning, everybody. My name's Julia Peyton-Jones. I'm Senior Global Director at Gallery Today Astropac London. And welcome to Ely House and this exhibition of work in our Art Basel viewing rooms. It is a great pleasure to have you join us, and we will be, I'm expecting to welcome Erwin Wurm, the artist, the Austrian artist, whose work I'm going to stand in front of now, so you can get a sense of the scale of this piece. As you can see, it's taller than me, and it's standing in front of the window in our library gallery, in the gallery itself, which recently opened on Monday last.
Hello, I'm here.
Hi, Erwin, how great to see you. Thank you so much for joining me, because I know today is a
You're welcome, thank you.
And nothing is more enjoyable than to talk about an artist's work with the artist. So
sometimes.
To have you here is really fantastic. So first of all, tell us the title of this work, the date of it, the medium. Tell us the basic.
Yeah, the title is Director. You know, it obviously refers to a company with a head of the person who is on the head of the company, and it is a bronze cast, black patina, and we did it last year. It was, yeah, exactly last year. It's actually out of a series of works. I made some with female bags, and one with a backpack. So it's, you know, it's there are many different aspects on this. For me, important. It's obviously an absurd way of speaking about a certain point of reality is these long, thin legs and the much too short shoes. And then, of course, the bag, which is addressing specific, not only a specific symbol of something, but also a certain habit, and speaking about our world, looking towards our world from a male perspective, which is not the best, I must say. But yeah, addressing many of these things. And of course, the absurd and the paradox of the way.
Yes. Well, you've touched on so many interesting points. I don't know where to start in our conversation. So firstly, it's made of bronze, I think.
Yeah.
And it's a piece that you made last year. Is that right?
Exactly. Yes.
And, when I was so lucky and fortunate to work with you on your exhibition here at Ely House. And so and also we've had a number of talks. So I wanted to talk a little bit about your long-going exploration of the body in a wide variety of different ways. Of course, the 1 minute sculpture, you're incredibly well known, but also in addition to sculpture per se, there's your strong connection to fashion and your ease at moving between the performative, between sculpture, photography, drawing, of which you draw very regularly and very beautifully. And so in a way, I would argue that this sculpture touches on all those different disciplines. So where shall we start? Let's start with this idea of the body and this idea of fat being a sculptural issue insofar as and this gentleman's legs are, of course, extremely thin, impossibly thin. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, I have skinny legs, but not that skinny. So, and it's not me, actually, it's not a self-portrait. But anyway, it is, the body, actually the human entity is from a person. I'm always was interested in this. So it means not only the body, but also the psychological parts, the mental parts. So all this combination of different aspects I've found interesting to work about. And at the very beginning, or for a long period of time, I was much interested in a specific realism, and this was going on, and this I developed, and I've realized under a certain period of time that destroying something can create something new. So I started to, in a way, attack the sculptures, physically attack them with my body, and I've realized by destroying pieces, as I said, something else comes out and the form transfers into something else. So this is an important part. And I left the work on the human body, the physical reality, what you can see. So, and I tried to find symbols or synonyms for part of the body. And I was working with sausages in the same way as I did with bags in the same way here.
And some of the work can be very large scale. They're of a scale that they fit happily into the landscape and command the ground around them. But this piece is for inside, I think.
Well, it can also stand outside. It's bronze, but the size of this is related to a tall male person. It's 190 centimeters tall, so it's a big man.
And is that your height, Erwin?
No, I'm a bit smaller. I'm 84, sorry. Make myself bigger. But what I think what's important also is it's addressing a certain male attitude towards the world, and I'm critical with this because there was this research I read recently, a research of this Peggy Orenstein, an American scientist. She made researches on young men, male person, and interviewed them about the self-consciousness. And it was so interesting because she said they all agreed on someone has to be what they expect being a man has to be athletic, rich, dominant, and not showing feeling. And this shows in a way dramatically how poor our modern men are, concentrated or focused on, very specific terms, which makes them look poor and sad in a way in relation to how rich and full our society is. So I try to address sometimes my work with this kind of ideas and criticism.
Yes, indeed. And I mean, of course, it's impossible to tell the character of this person apart from his height and the fact that he wants to depict himself. His character is a professional man. He's carrying a full briefcase in a way instead of a. So it's all about, you could say, if I was describing it to somebody who didn't know your work, and I was saying that it's a portrait of somebody, you might also say that this person focuses and is principally concerned with work, because the only thing you know about him is his very fine polished shoes, which I'm not sure if it's possible to see them very carefully.
Very small shoes, yes. Normally men like big shoes, big feet, yes. Right?
Yes.
But that's a small foot.
You know, a nice sharp crease to the trouser, and then you come up to the head or the torso, and this is a very full briefcase. You know, this is a briefcase full of work, full of activity, and tells you nothing, because it tells you nothing because it's a briefcase of quality, but it could be like a million other briefcases.
Yeah, but on the other side, Julia, sorry that I interrupt you. It speaks a lot about certain manners, certain attitudes, certain lifestyles, certain issues which are important for people, or for some more and for some less. So it addresses a certain picture of a man. And yeah.
But it's very interesting because there's also this element of humor which is so much part of your work, but it's not humor, it's irony, and you always talk so interestingly about the two.
Yeah.
Irony and humor.
Yeah, it's also, I agree, it's also funny, it's a bit stupid also. I mean, how can I describe this, to close a man down just to show him as his bag, and the legs are just here to transport the guy around. And yeah, this has a certain humor and a certain stupidity also, what I like. Yeah, true.
Yes, but it's also very much a sculpture form. And when you think about sculpture, do you have artists that you have been seminal in terms of your own practice, perhaps when you're studying or later, that you kind of in your mind refer to?
I mean, yes, of course there are artists which I liked very much. Not necessarily all the pieces, but many of them I have learned. For example, I was traveling a lot, or I was traveling a lot, and visiting many museums, and I saw mostly fantastic Picassos all over the world. And I had the feeling, wow, this guy never made a bad piece. And it was kind of a little bit depressing also. But then I found a museum with a collection, I don't name it now, of not so good Picasso paintings. And, you know, it means the guy was so great, he was such a genius, but he also made bad work, which is in a way a relief. And which tells us, be careful, because I try to do my best, but very often the best is not enough and the work is not good enough. So this is a constant fight and a constant thing. But yes, there are artists I desire a lot, and others I don't care.
And you work. Was this piece made in the countryside, or was it made in Vienna? I mean, obviously,
no, in the studio in the countryside. Yes. So what we do, we basically form the legs, and then we take a bag and we cast it and put it on top of it. So it's not such a complicated issue. The thing is, it's the complicated thing is first to define what kind of legs I would like to have, that they create a contradiction to the bag, because they should look, to my understanding, different. And they should be in a way a trap that they lead you in a wrong direction, or maybe let's say not wrong, in another direction than the bag. So basically the things going apart, the bag goes there and the other goes there, intellectually spoken. And also and then we add the bag, and the decision which bag is also not so easy. It sounds easy, I know. It's not so easy. The right shoes, the bags, and all this. Yeah.
No, I can understand that. And I also wanted to bring in at this point your familiarity and the ease with which you move between the different disciplines as I've described, but also as well as the visual arts, fashion. Of course, fashion is part of the visual arts. Last year, you were commissioned by Vogue, US Vogue, to do a fashion shoot whereby you dress the models as sculpture, which was very, and it's fascinating to me for a number of different reasons. One is that it's another way to explore or play with the human figure, but it's also another way to reach out to another audience, an audience that maybe knows something about your work, maybe they don't know about your work, but it's a whole other window on the world. And it's something, you know, the engagement with fashion is something that you've done throughout your career.
Yeah. Yes. May I interrupt you? It's not only my interest in fashion; it's the interest in cloth, because every sweater or every T-shirt or whatever you wear is a possible, or makes it possible that I can transform myself or somebody else into a sculpture very quick and very fast and very easy. So if you pull it over the head and put your arms in and turn it around, so then all of a sudden we have a volume, we have a specific form which can be interesting or not. So and I've realized quite soon that the contemporary space for art is not only the places for outdoor art, public art is not only the spaces or the streets in a city, but also the mass media. So, and as many designers and photographers, in a way, took my work as an inspiration, I found it interesting to try it myself. So I started to make all this sculpture shooting. I accepted invitations for magazines, and Vogue is just one from a long row. And I did this quite often. So I created these sculptures quite often with a different kind of clothes and fashion or not fashion, and to bring my understanding of sculpture out to the people, out to the public, outside of the gallery and museum context, which was quite surprising and interesting.
I think it's very exciting. And also your relationship to music. That's another thing, which is part of the way you expand out into the world.
Yes, you know, Julia, I thought from the very beginning, you know, when you're an artist, and I was in my 20s, so you have hopefully a long life in front of you, and you want to build a career, and you want to build a system that you can create and systematically on a long term. So I started to think about sculptural notions in relation with social issues. And then my basis was to work on, at the same time, on 3D sculptures, on video, photography, performances, drawings. I forgot something, I don't know. So, and I did all this. So I moved slowly the different aspects from my work forward. Sometimes the public was focusing just on one part, like let's say for the 1 minute sculptures, or later they were focusing a lot on the fat sculptures. But basically I started them all together in the same time, and I was moving them forward slowly, each by each other. And sometimes I was more focusing on the one piece, and the other side I was more focusing more on the other thing. So, but this is still with me, and I'm still trying to develop my work and to bring it forward, and also to make experiments. So that's a very important part for me.
Well, of course. And I mean, you know, you run this incredible studio where I think you've gone back now to making most all the work that you can yourself, whereas before you had many studio assistants. Now it's very much more to do with you being in the studio. So you're engaging really much more as an auteur rather than as running a workshop with people.
Yes, and I must say this, you know, and during an artist's life, you have different possibilities, and I had all of a sudden I had several assistants, and it was easy just to give them a sketch and they would realize the piece. But on a certain point, I realized I'm losing track to my work, and it's then I act more or less like an architect or somebody who is not really on the work close and do it with your own hands. So I started to stop this and to do the things by myself. Also, of course, with the help of my people, because I'm not able to shift around a piece which is 100 kilos, because when I work with clay, it's very, very quick, very heavy. And so I need the help, but I'm basically doing the most things really by myself. And that helps me so much, because I've learned that when I do something and fight with the material in a way also leads me. And whether you accept the invitation, then it enriches in a way the work, because the material shows you other ways and shows you and offers you other results than when you sit and plan everything on the paper and let it be done. So this was very important for me, and I love it. Yeah.
Yes. And can you say, did this body of work, this particular sculpture we're looking at now, did that lead to something unexpected, unforeseen when you were making it?
Oh, this one here, the bag?
Yes.
I mean, this came out of a long story it came out of the story where I started to dress pedestals. So I had these pedestals standing around in my studios in the 80s, and I started to dress these pedestals with clothes I had itself in my home. So with t-shirts and with sweaters, and then also with coats and also with jackets. And this went on. And so they were very minimal sculptures, and always related to the size of the pedestal, or sometimes I reversed it. And then the next step was, after some years later, to give them legs for some reasons. So all the standing cubes with the dressed cubes all of a sudden became legs. And then I went on with different objects with legs. So all of a sudden I realized it's a way to personalize things in a funny way and in an absurd way, which I liked. So all of a sudden a bag it can be a person, and or also a warm bottle can be a person, or other things. So this I found exciting.
It is very exciting.
But it's only, as I said, sorry, it's only one aspect of my work, right? It's just one small aspect.
Of course. I mean, we're lucky enough to be able to be talking in depth because we're standing in front of this beautiful piece, and we have you I have you to talk to about it. One of the things that you've mentioned a couple of times is the sweaters, because I remember vividly the first visit that I made to your home was a wall of knitting in pink, in the most glorious pink, with the detailing, the green detailing on the sleeves and around the neck, and the little sleeves hanging. It's the most spectacular piece. And so what seems so fascinating to me is that you take the idea of something and then really play with it. So it expands and it expands and it expands. The sweaters, of course, become sculptures, part of the 1 minute sculpture.
Yes, but you know, I call it continuation. When I started with the sweater pieces, I made a video in 1992 where I and a friend, we getting dressed in sweaters, but in a very unusual way. And we transformed the sweaters, or the sweaters or the pullovers transformed us into sculptures, weird, strange forms and sculptures. But the main thing was the sweater, the knitwear from the pullover, which is very stretchable, and you can put many things in it, and you can use it as a skin, and all of a sudden it transfers everything into an interesting sculpture, or into a weird sculpture. But it also protects, and because it's warm, and as we use a sweater when it's cold outside. So, and then I thought, the next thought was, okay, when I use a sweater, can I use it also for something else? For example, can I use it for architecture? Can I put it on the wall? What would this tell us? Or can I put it on the ceiling? And I tried all these things out. So this is how the wall sweater started.
Which is
And recently I made a big one for the church in Austria, for the St. Stephen's Church in Vienna. We had a huge 17 meters high sweater with the things hanging down during this very specific period of time in the church, where they have to cover all the crosses and the paintings.
Indeed, it's a spectacular piece. And what is so marvelous about it, it's like the Paul Klee idea of taking a line for a walk. So it seems to me that you take an idea, which may be just a germ of an idea to begin with, and then you expand it and you expand it until it grows into this exponentially in ways that it's impossible to imagine from the outset. Yeah,
it's true. So when you open the eyes and you do something, you open the eyes and you let it happen, and then you're able to follow the invitation of the material or the piece, and it leads you in a way. This I found so exciting. I remember once I've read a sentence of Gerhard Richter, the painter, the famous painter, who said his paintings are smarter than him. For a long time I didn't understand it, but now I think I know what he meant. He meant exactly maybe the same, because I see he has some paintings where he plans very precisely his paintings, but then he has others where you can see he let it flow, and the material is in a way leading him and pulling him or pushing him somewhere. And this I like walking through. So when you walk and follow your material or your work, it can lead you somewhere. It often leads you to nowhere, but it can also lead you to somewhere, and that can be interesting.
And can you tell us, what are you working on at the moment?
On the moment, I have this new series. Actually, it's also not new, because with houses, I was dealing a lot in my past artistic work. So I made now these houses of architects and of philosophers. For example, Sigmund Freud, who is one of my favorite Viennese person at the end of the 19th century. There's this birth house which exists in Bohemia, where he was born and grew up. And I found it attractive to use this house. And I was, in a way, sitting down on the house. So we made a model form. We sat down on the house, and it was squeezed and squashed, and we made a sofa out of this. So, and then I made a whole series of important philosophers, not only German, but also American. So, for example, Heidegger, who had a very critical past also, which I found important for the work for me, and also Friedrich Nietzsche. And I made all of the houses kind of sofa. So it's called the German sofa, das deutsche Sofa, because it tells us about a certain issue of a society where they like to sit back and think that they are on the wrong way, but they're probably if they're on the right way, but they're probably on the wrong way. So I'm playing with these things now around. I use also William Thoreau, you know, the English, the American guy who wrote about the disobedience against the government. And yeah, that's my new series. And we make big pieces out of it where people can sit on it and sit on the house of Heidegger, for example. Or Karl Marx. I also do a Karl Marx house now.
They're very exciting. I've seen images of them, but they're also a combination which I think of is so much part of your work, which is they're both very profound, but they're also very irreverent. This idea of sitting on the great philosophers.
Yeah, they are.
It's wonderful.
Yeah.
And irreverent. Now, I am very conscious of the time, dear Erwin, and I'm going to thank you so very, very much for your generosity.
Thank you very much, Julia. Thank you. I see there's some questions, but unfortunately, I'm not able to answer them because, very sorry, I have to go to the dentist, and it's very urgently. And I got this time slot now, and I have to go now. Otherwise, I have to wait another 2 weeks, and that's too late then.
I'm sure everybody will understand. And if there are any questions for you, we will field them and then send them to you by email.
Okay, great.
But I'm sure everybody joins me to thank you so very, very much indeed for talking to us today. And
okay,
you know, good dentist. Everybody needs.
It was a pleasure to talk to you. Okay, take care, Julia, and
thanks
goodbye,
so much,
everybody. Okay, bye-bye.